Welcome everybody to the Pearson Airport Explorers Club. We're so excited you're here. Today is the second of our fall series of camps, and thanks to all the explorers who joined us last week when we talked about runways and the towers at Toronto Pearson. We're going to be holding more camps later this year, so remember to regularly check our website for the dates to the upcoming camps and to register. So, before we go any further, I want to introduce myself. My name's Catherine. I'm the one on the top left, and I'll be your host today. I'm very lucky to be able to work at Toronto Pearson, where I work in community outreach, and that means I get out to the community to meet people and talk about all the great programs and initiatives that we have at Toronto Pearson. So you can see I've got three friends who are going to be helping me today. And Kathy, you want to tell our explorers a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, Airport Explorers. My name's Kathy, and I'm the top right corner there. I work with Catherine and this amazing team, and I get to work on amazing projects such as this one, the Pearson Airport Explorers Club, where I get to talk about all the amazing things and that happen at Toronto Pearson. My other colleague is Hies. Hies, do you want to introduce yourself and tell our Airport Explorers what you do?
Hi, good afternoon, Explorers. I'm Case. I'm a Senior Officer in Noise Management. I'm lucky enough to have been with Toronto Pearson for 5 years now, and we really work together with the entire team to make sure that the flight operations from Toronto Pearson are as quiet as possible for our neighbors around the airports. Russ, can you tell us what you do?
Yeah, well, other than being the other bald guy in the photos there, I'm the airport's tour guide. So I take people around the field and I show them around in normal circumstances. And we have a lot of fun getting up close to the airplanes, or in this case, in that photo, I'm standing in the Airbus A380. So I get to have a lot of fun working with you folks and seeing lots of people out on the airport. So I'm going to hand it back to Catherine. Keep going with the Airport Explorer Club.
Yeah, thanks, Russ. And yeah, it's true. We do have a lot of fun working together, and also especially on this project here. So I'm going to leave this slide up for a little bit longer so you can write down our email address and website. And don't worry if you don't have time to write it down now, because we'll put it up later. But the reason I'm asking you to write this down is we'll be giving you a special assignment at the end of our camp today, and we'll ask you to complete it and send it to us. So, Hies, can you tell our Airport Explorers why it's a good idea for them to send in their work?
Yeah, by sending us your work to trafficcontrol@airportexplorer.club before next week's camp on October 20th, your name will be put into a draw to win some cool prizes, such as Airport Explorer Club hats, t-shirts, or a jigsaw puzzle. And if you join us each week and send in all of the activities, your name will be put in a draw for a chance to win one of 3 Chromebooks. The draw for the Chromebook will be on October 30th, and we will email the 3 lucky winners of the Chromebook draw shortly after that. We will also be contacting all the winners of the hats, t-shirts, and jigsaw puzzles, so make sure to remember to send in your work. Catherine, can you tell our Airport Explorers what type of activities we did in our first fall camp?
Oh yeah, sure. That's a great idea, Hies. Last week in our camp on the runways and inside the towers, Airport Explorers were asked to match each Canadian airport with its 3-letter IATA code. You'll find that on your baggage, and we'll talk about that a little bit later today. But if you weren't able to join us last week, you can still do the activity. Just go to our website and watch last week's camp, and then you'll find the cool stuff we looked at as well as that activity. And Hies, I know you have a cool activity planned for us today that you'll assign, don't you?
Yeah, it's a really cool activity, so stay tuned for that one.
Great. And Kathy, can you tell our Airport Explorers what they can find on our website?
Yes, I can, Catherine. There's a lot of cool things on our website. You'll find lots of activities such as the ones Catherine mentioned above, decoding messages using the aviation alphabet. We have mazes and games. We have instructions to help you build your own plane or even make a kite. And we have some interviews with our airtime section with a pilot and an astronaut and a few of the people who work at Toronto Pearson. So be sure to check it out after today's camp. And if you missed last week's camp, don't worry, as Catherine mentioned, you can find each recorded on our website at airportexplorers.club. We're also recording today's camp, so feel free to watch it again. And also don't forget to tell your friends, family that they can watch our camps as well. For those of you who are joining us today, you can sign up to become an official Pearson Airport Explorers Club member. Visit again our airportexplorer.club to join the club.
So thanks, Kathy, for all this very important information. So before I hand it over to you, Kath, I'm going to let our explorers know how our camp will roll out. So first, Kathy's going to take us through our Airport Explorer baggage and cargo slideshow. So remember to pay attention to some extra insider information and some clues that we'll be giving you to help you later when we play some trivia. And then next, Russ, our roving reporter, was at Pearson Airport earlier today, and he's going to take us into the baggage room in Terminal 1 and talk about our baggage belt and system and what happens to your bags once you drop them off when you're traveling. Next, we'll play the trivia game. So as I said, remember to pay attention to some of the hints Kathy and I will be giving along as we go through the presentation. And then later when we see what Russ has to say when he's over at Toronto Pearson. And these will certainly help you with your answers to the questions. And then after trivia, we're going to talk to Russ about some of the questions that came in on our last camp. Unfortunately, because we have so much to cover in the hour together, we won't have time to answer any of the questions you send us in the chat box. However, you still can send us your questions after the camp when you submit your work. And we'll end our time together with Yace, who will walk you through an activity you can work on after this camp. So remember to send us your work to be eligible to win some cool prizes. And Cass, are you ready to go?
Roger that, Catherine. Airport Explorers, let's go. So as Catherine mentioned, today's camp is all about cargo and baggage. So our first part of the slideshow will be about cargo. People leave and arrive in Canada at Toronto Pearson, but other things leave and arrive through Toronto Pearson too. So let's talk about cargo.
We like to move it, move it. We like to.
Yes, that is a cool song. I remember that song. Airplanes carry, as I said, more than just passengers and baggage. They also move cargo, like you see in this photo. You see that little cargo container, it's being loaded into the aircraft. To get items to the people who need them, we need to move them by airplane, train, ship, or truck. And when items are being moved in this way, they are called cargo. That's a cool little photo of the cargo being loaded in the cargo aircraft.
Yeah, and I think that's a special plane that you're going to be talking about later.
Yes, I think so. So almost half of Canada's air cargo passes through Toronto Pearson. That's a lot, but that's the truth. Cargo can arrive and depart from Toronto Pearson 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Many of the things you see in stores in Toronto arrive in airplanes and on cargo. So for example, if you look around your home, I'm sure lots of things came through Toronto Pearson and they arrived in Toronto through Toronto Pearson.
So Kathy, do planes fly at night?
They do, Catherine. That's a really good question. We at Toronto Pearson don't ever shut down. So we operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We fly all the time.
And I can't believe almost half of Canada's air cargo passes through Toronto Pearson. That's something you should remember, explorers.
That's a good point, Catherine. So Toronto Pearson moves more cargo than all other Canadian airports combined. Toronto Pearson is a really big airport. The airport handles imports, which are items that are brought to Canada from another country. Imports to Canada include things like computers, bananas, and clothes. And also Toronto Pearson handles exports. That means items made in Canada that are sent to another country. Canada exports things like gold, medicine, and seafood.
So kind of a way to remember the difference between imports and exports is imports is kind of like it's coming in like into Canada, right?
Correct.
And exports goes out. Okay, I like avocados. What would that be?
That's an import into Canada.
I do love my avocados.
Yeah,
and oranges.
I love oranges. So some of the things, as Catherine talked about, that come into Canada from other countries, which is called an import, is medicine, medical equipment like face masks, clothing, earthworms, and tomatoes. and some things that Canada sends to other countries, which is on the blue side here of the screen, which is an export. So Canada exports things like gold, food for cows, medicine, airplane parts, my favorite, live lobsters, eels, and other seafood, and eggs, because we produce a lot of eggs in Canada.
Huh.
Many farms.
So lobsters, what do you eat with your lobsters, Kathy?
Lots of butter.
I'm kind of skeptical about the earthworms coming in. I don't think we eat those, do we?
No, that would be probably an import that we bring in for fishing.
Oh, for fishing, good.
I would think so. Yeah.
It's not food.
Food's for others. So how does the cargo get here? That's a really good question. So some cargo arrives in special planes that only carry cargo, like in that photo, that was a very special airplane that strictly carries cargo. However, most cargo arrives at Pearson in the underbelly of passenger planes. So if you're sitting on an aircraft, just below you, under there is where the cargo is. That's right. Next time you go on a trip, you could be sharing your plane with a shipment of diamonds or lobsters. And tip for explorers, you could be sharing your flight with crustaceans. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. That's a hard word. Live lobsters are flown to Toronto Pearson from Halifax, and then they're put on airplanes and sent all over the world.
That's a new word to remember. I think it's crustaceans.
Crustaceans. Oh my goodness, that is a hard word.
Yeah, it is.
Word. So when cargo arrives at the airport, it has to go through a special process to make sure it is safe. So cargo is taken off the airplane, and then it's moved to a huge warehouse. And it's this warehouse that we have, as you can see in this photo. It's the size of 4 Rogers Centers where the Blue Jays play. I'm sure all you airport explorers are familiar with the Rogers Center. Then the cargo is inspected by the Canada Border Service Agency. It's a government organization that checks everyone and everything entering Canada. So everything gets inspected by the Canada Border Services Agency.
I think that's something that our explorers should remember.
I think so too. That organization is very important.
Hey, and Kathy, what's that in the middle of that tower there? Can you remind our explorers what that is?
Yes, if you were paying attention last week, Airport Explorers, or you're new joining us, that is the NAV Canada Control Tower, and it's located in the center of the airport. Do you know why, Catherine?
Probably so they can see all around what's going on.
They can, yeah, they have a 360-degree view of the entire airport, including our 5 runways.
Yeah, they have a very important job. That's a very critical job at the airport.
For sure. So after the cargo is inspected, it is sent to a different building called a loading center. Then it's put into different trucks and taken to other warehouses or to stores and businesses across Ontario. So you see in this photo, these are containers and they all have cargo inside of them, and it's heading out to different businesses across Ontario.
Cool.
Yeah. So as I talked about, there are special planes called cargo planes. So in this photo, we're looking at a FedEx Express, and it strictly deals with cargo. So while most cargo comes in regular passenger planes that we talked about, some of it comes in special cargo planes. Cargo planes are usually very large, and some look like normal passenger planes from the outside, but definitely they don't look like normal planes on the inside. And tip for explorers, how can you tell if it's a cargo plane? Well, most cargo planes don't have windows. As you can see, they don't have many windows. Usually when you sit in a passenger plane, you can look out your window. In this case, there are no passenger seats and you can't look out a window because cargo planes don't have windows.
So the lobsters can't look out the window.
No, that's funny, Catherine. So here's an example of inside that FedEx aircraft or a cargo plane. I'm not sure if it's FedEx, but every inch of a cargo plane is designed to be filled up. There are no seats or bathrooms except for a little small bathroom in the cockpit for the pilots who are flying the aircraft. Instead, there are rollers and latches to help slide the cargo into the plane and hold it in place. So you can see these are like really big seat belts. It's very important for the cargo to stay locked down so that the plane can stay balanced while in flight. Think of it, like I said, like a seat belt for cargo.
Yeah, no, that looks, they're really secured down, and I guess because things get bouncy in the air and they want to make sure that nothing breaks or nothing moves around.
Yeah, that's a really cool photo of an inside of a cargo plane.
Yep.
Yeah. So speaking of cargo and very special planes, there are other planes, they're called supersized airplanes to carry really big things. There are special planes and they're called super transporters. These types of planes can move large and heavy things like cars and even other airplanes. Sometimes they move big construction equipment. And so, for example, in this photo, we're looking at an Antonov Mriya. It's a Ukrainian aircraft built in Ukraine. 225. It's the longest and heaviest aircraft in the history. For example, the wingspan on this aircraft is 290 feet, and that's about the same as 7 TTC buses. Could you imagine, Catherine? 7 TTC buses long.
Yeah, that's pretty big. And wasn't that plane in at Toronto Pearson earlier this year?
I believe so, and a whole bunch of people came out to look at it because it comes in once in a while to Toronto Pearson. And by the way, tip for explorers, this airplane can fly with 50 cars inside. Could you imagine 50 cars in this supersized airplane called the Antonov 225?
Well, it must have amazing engines to get it off the ground, because that would be super heavy with 50 cars.
Well, maybe later on we can ask Russ, but I think this aircraft has 6 engines.
Cool. And you're also from the Ukraine, aren't you?
I am. This is my favorite aircraft. So interesting to know, where does cargo come from? The next time you're using something like a water bottle, a computer, I'm sure we all have a computer nowadays, or a piece of clothing, think about where that item was made. So many things, from medical equipment to fresh vegetables, arrive in Canada through Toronto Pearson. It's an important way for people to get the things they need to stay healthy and happy. So like I mentioned, today's presentation is about cargo and baggage. So our next part of the presentation will be all about baggage. So if you went on a trip last year, because I think this year is a little bit difficult, you may have flown out of Toronto Pearson. And if you moved to Canada, like I did from another country, you probably arrived at Toronto Pearson. But passengers aren't the only thing that the airport moves. So we move cargo, but the other thing that Pearson handles is millions pieces of baggage every year. That's another thing we move, and let's check it out.
Kathy, do you find the hardest part of going on a trip is trying to remember what you're going to pack in your baggage?
You know, Catherine, I tend to always overpack, and I think what I tend to overpack are too many shoes, way too many shoes. So there are 2 types of bags, because the other thing that Pearson moves in millions of bags, and they're called carry-on luggage, which is smaller, lighter bags that can be brought with you on the plane. And then there's heavier bags that go underneath the plane in the baggage hold, and they are called checked luggage. So the 2 types of bags is carry-on you bring with you, and checked luggage that gets tucked in underneath the belly of the aircraft in the baggage hold.
Yeah, I remember we talked about that on our episode on all about airports, but I also remember that carry-on, it can't be too big, right, Kathy?
Yeah, I think there's a specific size that you can only bring. And when you get to the airport, there's they're made out of metal, and you can actually put your luggage in there, the carry-on luggage, to see if it's the right size and if they'll allow you to take that on with you.
But I mean, basically explorers just need to remember that if they're traveling and they're doing carry-on luggage, their bag has to be big enough that it can fit under their seat or in the bin over the top, right? And then the other thing is there's certain things that they can't carry in on their carry-on luggage, right?
Oh, correct. That is true. I think we'll find out about that. That's a good point, Catherine.
Cool.
So where does your bag go? So to check a bag, you should talk to a passenger service agent. You tell them where you're going and you show them your documents, for example, your passport, and where you're heading to. And because you don't want your bag to go north when you're flying south, the agent will print what we call a bag tag and stick it onto your bag. And the bag tag sticker says your name and where the bag is going to. These are very important things to remember.
Cool. Oh.
So let's decode a bag tag. So what is actually on the bag tag and what are all those letters and numbers mean? So the tag on your bag has your name on it, the name of the airline you're flying on, and it also has special codes for the airport you're flying from and to. So for example, Toronto Pearson's 3-letter code is YYZ. Catherine, do you remember when we used the aviation alphabet, how you would say that using the aviation alphabet?
Yes, it's oh dear, Yankee Zulu.
Correct. Airport Explorers, Catherine is talking about the aviation alphabet. So Yankee Zulu, or YYZ is the 3-letter code for Pearson. The barcodes on your tag, for example, are really important because computers read them to make sure your bag goes to the right place, because you would hate for your bag to end up in Florida when you're going to Italy.
Yeah, that's terrible. I remember like last week, for those explorers who joined us, right? Remember last week we gave you the name of all the airports in Canada, and we asked you to match that. So thanks for those who sent their work in last week.
Yeah, great work, guys. So your bag goes on its own journey when you check it in. Imagine a really big version of the supermarket checkout. At the supermarket, you put your groceries on a conveyor belt. So when you're heading to Toronto Pearson and you drop your bag off at the airport, it rides a roller coaster of conveyor belts to its gate.
Yeah, I was wondering. I always wondered how it got my bag got to the gate so quickly.
Yeah. So as we talked about this conveyor belt, it's like a highway of suitcases. The baggage system is like a lot of complicated highways. The conveyor belts are like roads carrying your bag from start to finish. Once you drop off your bag, it goes into a different part of the airport, full of 30 kilometers of conveyor belts. So remember, Airport Explorers, 30 kilometers of conveyor belts. So in 2019, the system carried over 100,000 bags every day. Catherine, hopefully you can remember that number, but it's 100,000 bags every day.
And 30 kilometers, that's a long conveyor belt.
It is. That would be a cool roller coaster ride.
And I can imagine 100,000 bags every day, and they were filled with shoes. That could be like 500,000 pairs of shoes in 100,000 bags.
Oh, that would be a lot. So after you drop your bag off, Airport Explorers, it gets weighed. Then it is x-rayed to check for any dangerous materials. A computer scans that sticker that we talked about on your bag, and then your bag gets whizzed away on the conveyor belt toward the right gate. In some places, robots even help to move the bags around. That's talking about the future. So we got robots helping us. Airport workers watch all the bags, such as this gentleman in the photo, with cameras and computers to make sure everything is moving quickly and smoothly and there are no delays.
So this is how we safely make sure that there's not any bad stuff in luggage, right?
Oh yeah, as your baggage goes on this 30-kilometer conveyor belt, it gets scanned multiple times and checked all the time.
Can you imagine having that job that gentleman has there? I mean, like looking at 100,000 bags a day.
Oh, I think there's more than just him, but that's a great example. That would be a lot of bags to look at.
That's a very important job.
I think so too. So when it gets to the gate, your bag is picked up by a baggage handler. So it's gone through this 30-kilometer conveyor belt. It gets to the gate and this baggage handler picks it up like this gentleman in the photo. The baggage handler puts the bags into the cart. They drive the carts to the plane and then they put your bags into the baggage hold. The baggage hold is where your bags go in the underbelly of the plane. Baggage handlers make sure the bags are packed in very safely.
And they have a very important job as well.
They do, and they work in all types of weather. So we have to remember that they're outdoors because they're taking your bags and putting it into the belly of the aircraft. So, Airport Explorers, the next time you board a plane, look out the window like these two guys are. You might be able to see the baggage handlers working, and you might be able to spot your bag out of the 100,000 that come through Toronto Pearson.
Do you look out the window to make sure your bag's going on the plane, Cassie?
Sometimes, but usually I'm really excited about where I'm going for my destination and my next vacation. So I'm thinking ahead, not so much about my bags.
Do you like the window seat or the inside seat?
I love the window seat. I'm a window seat person.
Me too. I love looking out.
So Airport Explorers, what did you learn today? Are you ready to check out more cool airport stuff?
Well, that was great. Thanks, Kathy. That was super interesting and lots of information to remember. So remember that we're recording this. So Explorers, if you want to watch it again, you can go to our website. And we'll be putting the recording up tomorrow, so you'll be able to look at it then. So let's see what Russ has been up to earlier today. He was over at the airport and he was checking out things that were happening in our Terminal 1 baggage area. So let's see what Russ has to say.
Hi there, Airport Explorers. We're here in the baggage room at Terminal 1 here at Toronto Pearson. We have 30 kilometers of conveyor belts. And what happens when you're going on your flight is you get to the check-in counter and the agent puts a luggage tag on there that's read by the computer. The computer then sends the bag through the conveyor system down into the X-ray, because every single bag is X-rayed before it gets put on an airplane for security reasons. And then eventually it makes its way through all those conveyor belts to somewhere like this sortation area here. And then the bags are picked up by an employee from the airline or the company they've hired to handle their flight. They'll take the bag and they'll put it into one of these containers. The container then gets taken out to the aircraft when it's full and put inside the belly of the plane, underneath where the passengers are sitting. And the same process in reverse when they're arriving. The bags come off the container, through the container down onto the truck, and then get taken into the customs hall or to the baggage claim area, where someone is taking the bags out of the container and putting it onto a conveyor belt. So when you're waiting for your bag as you've arrived from the flight, someone is putting it onto a conveyor belt and it goes through the wall and ends up on the other side. It's a pretty cool place. Lots and lots of bags get processed through here. All right, so we're here on the Terminal 3 apron, and this aircraft is being loaded and getting ready to go back to Korea. So we've got baggage containers or cargo containers. We've got a catering truck that's sitting up on the hydraulic lifts. So the reason it's raised up is so that they can take the catering food carts off of the truck straight into the galley of the aircraft, where the flight attendants will later on serve the meals to the passengers, while the baggage gets loaded either on a conveyor or on these lift trucks and goes underneath where the passengers sit in the cargo or the baggage holds. It's pretty fascinating, all the stuff that goes on here when they're getting an aircraft ready to depart, or when it's arriving in reverse, taking all the stuff off. So here's an Air Canada Boeing 777-300. This aircraft normally would fly 450 passengers all around the world, but today it's flying cargo. They've converted it to fly only freight and things like perishable items. Now, perishables are things that are going to go bad quickly, like dairy and fruit. There's also a lot of PPE, or personal protective equipment, and pharmaceutical items. There's a UPS, Boeing 767. UPS is United Parcel Service, so they only carry cargo. This particular aircraft has never carried passengers. Sometimes you'll get passenger airplanes, you can tell those with all the windows, and then they've converted them to cargo permanently and they've covered up the windows. But in this case, there are no windows, except for the pilots, of course. Here we have a Boeing 747-400 freighter. And I can tell it's a freighter again because there are no windows in the body of the aircraft. That's where all the cargo is put. Whereas the three little windows up the top, that's for the crew. That's a galley and service area up there for the crew. The pilots, of course, use the front of the aircraft, and that's what the cockpit windows are for. But a cargo plane usually has no windows, or if it's an old aircraft that used to fly passengers, they may have covered up the windows. In this case, there are no windows visible. It never was a passenger plane. Airport Explorers, I hope you enjoyed your visit to Toronto Pearson and the apron, seeing all the cool activity that goes on out here. We'll be seeing you around. This is Russ, over and out.
So thanks, Russ. Hey, Explorers, did you see that what was going on that conveyor belt when Russ was beside the one of the planes? It said fresh seafood. So that's kind of fun watching that stuff getting loaded onto the plane. And thanks, Russ. You always show us some really interesting things when you're airside. So, Case, I haven't heard from you for a little bit. Are we going to play a little trivia today?
Of course we are, Catherine. So, Airport Explorers, let's see what you remembered from the slideshow that Kathy gave, and of course our visit with Russ, our roving crustacean. And do you remember the clues that were given? Let's see if we can answer all of these questions. So we're going to ask you 10 questions, and we're going to ask you to answer these in your head at home, challenge your brothers or sisters, your friends or your parents, or whoever you're with, to see who can get the most questions right. The trivia is just for fun, so you don't need to email us or send us your answers. So Airport Explorers and Catherine, are we ready?
Oh, I'm ready, but I can't believe you called Russ a crustacean. crustacean.
A crustacean. Let's have a look. So question number 1, how much air cargo passes through Toronto Pearson Airport? Is it half of Canada's air cargo? Is it no air cargo at all? Or only bananas and oranges?
I remember it was significant. It was a lot because I remember Kathy made us say it was, you know, a pretty big number.
Right, it was a lot. So I'm definitely going to be sure that it's more than nothing, and it's more than just bananas and oranges because it's also your avocados, right, Catherine?
Oh, my avocados, that's right.
So it is number 1. Half of Canada's air cargo passes through Toronto Pearson Airport, and that's more cargo than all other Canadian airports combined. We do like to brag a little bit here and there, don't we?
We are a very important airport for bringing stuff into Canada and shipping stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
Should we look at question 2?
Let's have a look at question number 2. What does import mean? Is it items that are brought to Canada from another country or items that are made in Canada that we send to other countries?
I remember asking Kathy that, and I think it is because import kind of reminds me of import. So I think import means items that are brought to Canada from another country. Could I be right?
Exactly. That's exactly what I think, Catherine. So items that are brought in to Canada from another country, like those lovely vegetables from Mexico that we're seeing there. So Canada doesn't import just vegetables, but also a lot of other things like computers, bananas, and even clothes.
And PPE, which is very important right now.
Right, personal protective equipment. Question number 3, what agency is responsible for inspecting all cargo that comes through Pearson Airport? Is it Transport Canada, NAV Canada, the airlines, or Canada Border Services Agency? Catherine, NAV Canada rings a bell to me, but I can't really quite remember why.
Oh, I think that was from last week. I think NAV Canada, and we saw the tower earlier when Kathy was doing the presentation, but they're responsible for making sure that the planes fly safely, right?
Right, so that's the air traffic controllers and the tower in the middle of the field.
So we definitely know it's not NAV Canada. Should we see who it is?
Let's have a look. The Canada Border Services Agency, or CBSA. So Toronto Pearson processes over 45% of Canada's air cargo, and the Canada Border Services Agency really checks and inspects all of that cargo that goes through Pearson.
That's a lot of baggage to look at, or cargo.
A lot of pallets.
A lot of pallets.
Question 4. I remember that being Kathy's favorite airplane. What's the biggest cargo plane in the world called? Is it the Boeing 787, the Antonov AN225, the Airbus A380, or a Cessna 172? Catherine, I hope we added in those TTC buses and they're not actually flying in the air, right?
Yeah, we added them in, but I mean, I think that's to show how big it is.
Just how big it is. So yeah, it is the Antonov AN225, and I think it had a wingspan of about 7 TTC buses. And that's about 290 feet long. So that's really, really long.
It is. That's a lot. Can you imagine being, oh, that would be cool, being on a bus in a plane?
On a bus in a plane.
I don't think that's safe, though.
I don't know. I've been on a bus on a train before, but never on a bus on a plane.
Wow.
Question 5. What do we call the 2 types of bags that passengers can bring to the airport?
I know this one.
Is it red and green luggage, carry-on luggage and checked luggage, rainbow luggage, or your trusty old lunchbox?
You could bring your lunchbox on the plane with you.
Yeah, I usually bring my lunchbox wherever I go. I like to pack a nice healthy lunch.
As long as there's no water in it, right?
No, well, or it's always the refillable bottle, right, Catherine?
Right.
Because we do have those machines at the airport where you can refill your water bottle.
But I don't think you can take a full bottle through when you're checking in.
Exactly.
Yeah, and red and green luggage, that would be very good for the holiday season, but I'm not sure if that's the right answer. Shall we find out?
Let's have a look. So it's carry-on and checked luggage. Catherine, can you explain what the difference between those two are again?
Well, yeah, well, carry-on is smaller luggage that you can carry on, and as long as it's big enough that it fits under your seat or in the overhead bin, but you can probably bring a small pet on as carry-on, can't you, Case?
Yeah, we talked about that in one of our last camps that, for instance, small dogs, people can bring on the planes as well.
Yeah, and checked luggage would be things like your big suitcase and like if you golf or you're skiing or something, or a guitar, right?
Yeah, or big suitcases full of Kathy's shoes.
Yes, yes.
Question 6, where can you find a bag tag? Because that bag tag is so important to make sure that your bag is going the same destination as we are. So can we find it on our passport, on our bag, on your brother or your sister, if you want to check those in, or on your shoes?
Well, I think it makes sense a bag tag would be on your bag.
I think so too. That makes a lot of logical sense. On your bag. Look at that stack of bags, Catherine.
That's amazing.
So the tag on your bags has your name on it, the name of the airline that you're flying on, and of course the 3-letter airport code. The barcodes on the tag are really important because the computers read them and make sure that your bag goes to the right place.
I wonder if that's Kathy's baggage.
All of those filled with shoes. Question 7. What is Toronto Pearson's 3-letter IATA code? Is it YUL, YYZ, YVR, or YTZ? I'm not going to say anything because I know, because Kathy made me practice earlier. Right. So let's have a look. If our airport explorers remember, it is YYZ. So IATA stands for the International Air Transport Association. And if we look at some of the other codes that we have there, for instance, YUL is Montreal Pierre Elliott Trudeau International Airport in Montreal. Can you do that with the aviation alphabet? That's Yankee Uniform Lima. Cool. YVR are our trusty neighbors out west, which is Vancouver International Airport, Yankee Victor Romeo. And the last one is our neighbor here in Toronto. That's Billy Bishop Toronto City Airport on the island is YTZ, or Yankee Tango Zulu. I love using that aviation alphabet. It's so much fun. And it becomes kind of a fun little game after a while, doesn't it? Yeah, it is. So those codes are 3-letter location identifiers that designate many airports and cities around the world. And you'll notice that most of the ones in Canada all start with that letter Y because they date back to weather stations before we had a bunch of airports. Yeah, that was a really cool thing that I learned last week, that if something begins with the Y, I will always know it's an airport in Canada. Mm-hmm. Cool. Question 8. In 2019, how many bags came through Pearson in one single day? Is it 200,000, 100, or 100,000? I definitely do remember Kathy saying something with the word 100 in it, but was it 100 or 100,000? I think it was number 3 because I remember thinking that poor person there looking at that bags would probably get a headache looking at 100,000 bags a day. Right. 100,000. Good. You paid attention, Catherine. Good job. So after you drop off your bag, it gets weighed and x-rayed. Your bag tag gets scanned by a computer, and then your bag gets whizzed away to the conveyor belt to your gate. Did you remember how many kilometers of conveyor belt we had, Catherine? I do. I don't know if that question comes up again, does it? I don't know. Does it? Maybe. Oh, well, we'll see until question 10. Let's hold off on that one. So what is the name of the person who picks up your bags? Is it a baggage handler, the pilot, a flight attendant, or a plumber? I just remember that these fellows work in all types of weather. Right. It's definitely a very hard job in Canada. So it's a baggage handler. And if we just think about how hot and how cold it can be in Canada, if we compare the summers to the winters, it's definitely a very tough job. So the baggage handlers load the bags onto carts, and they also drive the carts to the plane. And they have to work in all types of weather conditions. So next time when you're taking a flight and it's -30 outside, it's always good to remember that it might take a little bit longer for you to get your bag, because those baggage handlers are definitely in need of a break every once in a while to warm up.
Same when it's super hot in the summertime.
Exactly.
They need water and rest so they can work effectively. That's a really super hard job. I don't think I could be a baggage handler.
And we've come to our last question, question 10. Is it true or false? Do passenger planes carry cargo? What do you think, Catherine? True or false?
I think it's true.
Yeah, I definitely think it's true as well. So next time you're sitting on a plane, you might notice, or you're not going to notice, but you'll know now, that most passenger planes also carry cargo. The priority is always going to be the luggage of the passengers on board, but you might have some crustaceans just sitting under your seat in the hold below.
Hopefully they don't nip at your toes.
Ooh, yeah.
That's interesting. And you know what, Yates? You asked me that question earlier, but I think it's 30 kilometers of conveyor belts, right?
30 kilometers exactly. So that's a lot of conveyor belt.
Oh boy. Well, thanks. You know what? Thanks, Yates. This is always my favorite part of the camp. And I found some of these questions easier to remember this week because of the stuff that I learned before. One thing I do want to remember is the barcode on the luggage. And Kathy, can you tell me again why the barcode on my luggage is really important?
No problem, Catherine. Airport Explorers, computers read your bag tag to make sure your bags go to the right place.
Yeah, well, thanks for the reminder, Kathy. So
yeah, no problem.
Yeah, what's up next?
Yeah, so thanks, Catherine and Yates. We're going to spend some time talking with Russ. Catherine talked about Russ going out, or Russ is our roving reporter. He knows a ton about the airport. He can help with answer any of the questions that were emailed to us from our airport explorers in last week's camp, where we looked at runways and the two important towers at Toronto Pearson. So Russ has been working at the airport for more than 30 years and knows just about everything there is to know about Toronto Pearson Airport. So let's ask Russ. Russ, can you remind our airport explorers who you are and what you do and why you love your job so much?
Hey, airport explorers. Hi, Kathy. Hey, everyone. I just had a great time out there in the baggage area and out on the airfield, but I think I'm going deaf from all that noise. It was pretty cool and loud. Anyways, yeah, I get to have great fun going out there and seeing the planes up close. That's probably part of my favorite thing. And I love meeting all the new people and when we go out to events as well. But I said, oh, you put the slide up here that's got all these cool photos in it. So I can talk about some of those in a few minutes as well. That shows one of the days when we had some fun. Oh, and you mentioned, I think you mentioned we had the Antonov come here. So a couple of those photos are from the Antonov Maria. 225 it's called, and it's we had it visit us only twice ever. There's only the one plane. It's from the Ukraine, Kathy's favorite place, and that came to us this last time on May 30th of this year. Otherwise, I think it was 5 or 7 years ago.
That's so cool, Russ. You have a really cool job, and of course, I'm envious of you because you're always around airport and aircraft. So. Russ, let's get to our first question our airport explorer sent in. And the first question is, who controls the movement of aircraft along the taxiways?
Okay. That's a good one. So I think in the last presentation, we talked about the control towers when I was out on the field last week, and we had the two towers. So as a plane leaves the apron where it's parked, it's talking to the apron tower, and then it moves on to a taxiway to get towards the runway. So we have the 5 runways, but we have lots of taxiways. And so to take off on the runway, it talks to the tower controller and the green Nav Canada control tower. But to get to the runway, it has to talk to another controller called the ground controller.
Oh, so when the aircraft is on the movement area where the runways are, they're talking to the Nav Canada control tower, and when it's at the gate on the apron area, they're talking to the apron control tower.
Exactly. So there'll be at least three controllers they'll be talking to from the time they move from the gate to get into the air.
That's cool. So our second question is, what is the person called who signals the pilot to park the plane on the lines on the apron?
Oh, okay. That's the aircraft marshaller. We talked about them previously as well. They are the ones who get to have the cool orange wands, and they stand on the lines and they make sure the pilot sees them. And then when it gets closer and closer, as it moves left or right and then straight ahead, and then they put their hands over their head in the shape of an X, and that tells the pilot to stop. And those people work for the airline or for the company that the airline has hired to look after their plane.
Cool. And I know you have a special license, and part of that license is knowing the rules. For example, the marshaller, he's just as important as the aircraft out there.
Yeah, exactly. I have to have a DA to drive out. It's called the driver on the apron, and I can drive anywhere on the apron. And then there's other drivers who have an even better license that allows them to drive anywhere on the airfield.
Cool.
So you've got to know what you're doing when you're driving, not just like driving a car, definitely not like driving a bike.
Great. So third question, where does the fuel come from that is put into the aircraft?
Okay. When we go with our parents to fill up our car, we go to a gas station. Well, here at the airport, we have a giant set of tanks, and all the fuel gets pumped underneath the apron through some pipes. And then they use the hydrants that are all around the airport underneath the wings of the plane. And then the truck hooks up to the hydrant and then pumps the fuel into the wings, because all the fuel in an airplane is kept in the wings. And so that's a good use of space, because you don't want to have tanks separately. If you've got these empty wings, you might as well fill them up with fuel. So you do that, and then that's sort of like the gas station.
Wow, so they're all underground. That's cool. I had no idea, Russ.
Yeah, it's really neat.
Okay, another question is, what is the difference between a narrow body aircraft and a wide body aircraft? I'm just looking at all these great photos with you. Can you maybe explain to the airport explorers what the difference is?
Sure. Okay. So the official difference is a wide body is 2 aisles. When you're a passenger on board, you get on board, and if you've only got 1 aisle to walk down, then that's a narrow body. And if you got 2 aisles to walk down, then that's a wide body. But what that really means is that wide bodies are bigger planes that carry more passengers. So in the photo with the airplane over my head, that looks like it's a Boeing 777 taking off there, and it would be a wide body, but a narrow body from the ground is going to look a lot smaller.
Oh, that's great. And do you know how much it costs to paint an airplane? I noticed that one in the bottom right corner there of the photo, it looks like pandas all over it.
Yeah, that's a really cool photo. That's Hainan Airlines. They have painted one of their planes with the panda bears because they're from China, and the panda bears are from China. But they have the big swirly color on the tail on all of their planes. And I heard from someone, I can't guarantee this, but I heard from someone at one of the airlines who does airplane painting, that they said it costs something like $2,000 a gallon to paint.
Wow, that's expensive paint.
That's very expensive. So it's not something you want to do all the time. You don't want to just touch it up here and there. You got to make sure that you're making a big plan on how you're going to paint it. And it's a big plane to paint, right? That one that you're looking at is a Boeing 787 Dreamliner. Very, very quiet and efficient airplane, but very big. That probably carries 280 people or something.
Oh, wow. Okay, Russ. Well, we have a lot of planes at Toronto Pearson. And where does the airplane maintenance take place if there's a problem with the aircraft or it has to be looked at?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't think I actually ever told you guys this one. So this is a good question. Good comment. Down in the bottom left, that slide with the Antonov, where you can see 3 of the engines. It has 6 engines. If you look above it, you can see the 6. But down below, in behind it, there's some buildings. And those buildings are called hangars, Hangars. And so an airline will build a hangar on their busiest airport or the airport where they have a lot of their flights going, so they can do maintenance work. Sometimes they'll tow the plane overnight into the hangar because it's not flying. Other times they have to take it out of service for a couple of days to do some repair work or just routine maintenance that has to be done. They have a very set schedule how they're going to maintain the airplane, and after it's done a certain number of flying hours or cycles, they call them, then they have to get that maintenance done. And each part is recorded and it's got a serial number. It's very, very detailed and very, very safe and secure that way. So in a hangar, that's where they would repair things, or even the painting that I talked about. But some airlines don't actually have hangars in Toronto Pearson because they're not an airline from here. So somebody like that Antonov or the Hainan Airlines, they don't have hangars. So what they would do, if they have a mechanical problem, their mechanics would try to fix it right at the gate, or they would have to hire somebody in Toronto who's got a hangar so they could tow it there and fix it.
Wow, okay, interesting. So this is my favorite question. What other jobs did you have at the airport before you became Toronto Pearson's most popular tour guide? And what other jobs would you like to do at the airport if you weren't a tour guide?
Oh, okay. I have done a lot of different jobs in all those years. I started out at the Operations Center, which is like a NASA Space Center. And that's where all the control happens. You're talking to everybody all over the airport to make sure things are fixed properly and that everything's running smoothly. So I sort of got to know everything about the airport there. And then eventually I specialized in different tasks. And so when I got to become the tour guide, that's probably the best job I've got now. Mm-hmm. But all those other jobs are really fun and always learning. And it's important for kids to always remember, you can never stop learning. Even if you think you know it, learn more, because there's always fun stuff out there. And then the job that I would like to do, you know what? I think I probably would find it fun to be a flight attendant, because I get to meet lots of people. Yeah. And you get to see the world, travel around the world sometimes. Sometimes you just go to New York and come back in the same day, so you don't really see anything. But sometimes you get to go off to Hong Kong or South America, and you have to spend a couple of days there before you can catch your next flight. So then you get to see the sights.
Cool. Well, thank you, Russ. You obviously do know everything about Pearson and aviation, and I think some of our viewers had no idea about where maintenance of aircraft take place or where the fuel comes from, and that it's underground, and that you are really famous and would like to become a flight attendant. I think I would love that too. And that's cool. And those are really cool, interesting facts. Thank you, Russ.
Yeah, they had some great questions. Thanks for asking.
And airport explorers, remember, if you want to hear more about what Russ has to say about his love of aviation and airport, you can watch the video again, as we will be uploading it to our website tomorrow. So make sure you check it out if you want to hear Russ talk about aviation love.
And Russ also is, if you go to our airtime on the website, you can see Russ talking to one of our airport explorers about different types of airplanes and their love of aviation. So you can hear lots more from Russ. So, hey, Russ, I would actually make sure that I was on a plane where you're the flight attendant.
Ah, cool. I'd love to be able to serve you a nice glass of wine or coffee.
Thanks. Okay, so now we're moving on to my favorite part of the camp, which is activity time. And Case, what are we doing today?
All right, thanks, Catherine. Today's activity is called Cargo Bingo. So let's have a little competitive, and let's, of course, play to win. So you won't get time to play this game just yet. So it's a little bit of an explanation on what Cargo Bingo is all about and what the rules of the game are. We'll be leaving you with the opportunity to better understand how to play this game with your friends, your parents, or your classmates. As Catherine mentioned, you can watch this again tomorrow to go over all the rules so you can better understand the game that is called Cargo Bingo. So Airport Explorers, let's have a look. To play this game, let us quickly remind ourselves of what cargo exactly is. So cargo refers to goods carried by a large vehicle like an airplane, a ship, a train, or a truck. And cargo originates from the Latin word caricare, which means to load on a cart or a wagon. There we go. So have you ever thought about all of the things that fly into Pearson International Airport? Because it's not just passengers, it's also cargo. So many different things come to Canada from all over the world, and there are so many things in your house that you can see right now that actually came from different countries. So where did they all come from? To play the game that we call Cargo Bingo, you'll need to download and print the Cargo Bingo card from our website. You can see an example of what that card looks like on the right here. So for this game, you will compete with the people in your house or your classmates to find objects that match the description on the Cargo Bingo cards that were not made in Canada. The first one to call all the items they need and yell "Cargo" wins. To find out where the item comes from, look for a label on the back or the bottom of the item, look it up online, or even just ask an adult for help. So we also want to make sure that everyone knows the rules before we begin playing, so let's have a look at them. The item must match the description on the box. The item cannot be made in cargo, so it has to be an imported item. You can only use one item from each box. Write down what you found and where it came from underneath the bingo card or on another piece of paper. Again, to win, you yell "Cargo!" and you have to make a straight line of 5 boxes horizontally, vertically, or diagonally. So, Airport Explorers, print off both cards, have a lot of fun playing Cargo Bingo, and make sure to get a little competitive and yell "Cargo!"
Cool, thanks, Case. And Explorers, obviously, what we're looking for you to do, you can't send in all your cargo cards, but if you send us a picture to our traffic control at Airport Explorers Club, we'd like to see the cards that you came up for with your bingo game. So there's our email address, and just remember, if you send us last week's and you join us this week's, and you join us next week, and you send all 3 activities in, you could also have an opportunity to win one of 3 Chromebooks. So Airport Explorers, thank you again for joining us today, and we hope you enjoyed our presentation and learned more about cargo and baggage, and you enjoyed our Cargo Bingo game. We certainly had fun. And remember to send us your work. So see you next week at 1 p.m. In the meantime, have a safe week. This is Catherine signing off. Over and out.
Hello, Airport Explorers. This is Kathy. Thanks for joining us. Over and out, Airport Explorers.
Roger that, Kathy. Hope to see everyone next week. We'll get a bit futuristic and talk about the future of aviation. This is Case. Over and out.
And this is Russ. It was so much fun telling you guys all that stuff today. I hope we can share some more information next week. You've got all that future stuff you're going to be learning, and I'm going to talk a little bit about history too. So we'll see you all next week. This is Russ, the tour guide. Over and out.
Bye, everyone.